Okay, so the inventory system, I'll start from the front desk. All you have to do is go over to the admin screen, and then over to inventory editor on the bottom, on the second column towards the top.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have all your inventory items. So this will be where you store everything. Now you can pull them up or edit an existing one via hitting this little pencil icon. And that you can see where you have your cost and your average value, how much you have on hand, and your minimum order, which I'll get to in a second. You also have your history, which in here, if you had history for this, it'll show you when you recently sold the item, and when you recently purchased the item, any recent core charges, and then your sales summary of how much you sold this both this year, last year, and 2 years ago. And that we can track it from there. Which also pairs really well. We have a national scorecard feature, and you can compare that as well to see departments.
How does that history get populated? I see we do have purchase history back in 18 on it. When the guys up front order a part in and key it into a ticket, does that automatically generate a PO and populate it with history?
If they're doing a delivery, it'll create it as a temporary item, which it won't, a special purchase, which it will, or a stock item, which it will.
Okay. What's the best way to do that then if you want to make sure that history is always there? It should generally...
Just make the delivery, put it in as what it is, either a stock item or a special purchase. Special purchase being something you're buying for just then, which it seems like you guys are doing a little bit more of, but...
That's what I was wondering, because I didn't see anything on the history.
And it's generally best not to do it from the ticket. If you have an item you know you're going to be stocking and tracking, it's good to add it to your inventory before you're putting it on the tickets. Like if it's something you're pulling from your inventory, it's better to have it here. Which to add an item to the inventory, we're going to go to Add New Record up here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a part you want to put in, maybe you don't have in your inventory system.
At the moment, no I don't.
Okay. But say I'll add like test 1337. You can go in. If you had a core charge, this is where you'd put a core charge, what it is. You can say like test part do not use. If you want that, a description to linked would be you can pull up another inventory item, and whenever that item is pulled up, this one will come up. A good example of that is maybe if you have a tire you have in your stock, you're going to have it automatically pull up a tire stem. So you want that tire stem to come up whenever that happens.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, good.
Vendor name, you'd pull in what vendor you get it from, either by typing or better off hitting this, and you can select from your vendors. I would recommend you guys go through your vendors at some point. It looks like you have a lot of duplicates in here, as well as a lot of ones that probably haven't been used in a while.
Right.
So I would just go through that list at some point, which you can do through your quick links vendor list, and just clear ones you guys don't use anymore. It's just good to keep that organized. Barcode if you have it, which is nice if you have like a barcode scanner. That will allow you to just put that in. If there's any other manufacturer numbers, which you probably don't have, but is good to know of. Alternate part numbers, maybe if it would come up via, you have two different part numbers for the same part, such as like those tire stems, million manufacturers of those. The department code is important. You can type in here, but and it will make a new department, but generally it's best to select exactly what department it is.
Okay, so we've got department codes, but then we can also do sorts by category too, I assume.
Correct. And department codes, like I said, if you type in here, it'll make a new department for it. And you can get reports based on your departments, which is why fees are important. The multiple types of oil, like it looks like you guys have the bulk, Euro, synthetic. You might want to do like a synth blend. Those are becoming more common, but yeah. Location, not necessarily needed, but you could put where in the shop it is, like shelf to location A, if you guys are very attentive of that.
Okay, so we can do like a bin location there.
Exactly. However you guys sort it, you just put in exactly how they find that part. So if you're saying this is it, how much is there? And then quantity on hand, I can say, let's say, 5 on hand. And they can buy each gallon, quart, liter, pound, just how it's going sorted. we'll do each. But that way, like for oil, it's very convenient to say I have 5 quarts, or
Right.
1.4 gallons. Deliveries will show you how many are currently being delivered, which when you run the end of day, those will process to available to quantity on hand. Quantity on
Okay.
use, same thing. Once you're on the end of day, those will process. And then over here, if you're doing purchase orders, which I don't think you guys do, but it's good to think about.
We're going to be.
Yes.
Actually, I have a pretty strong inventory background, so I really kind of want to dive into this side of the system and get it all
Perfect.
accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. So minimum stock quantity is how many there has to be minimally for you to make a purchase. So like,
Right.
say if there's 2, you want to order 2, but you never want to order so that you have more than 6. And the minimum order
Right.
quantity, let's say I can only order it in sets of 3. So that way,
Okay.
when you next time you do a purchase order, if this fell below 2, it would put it to an additional 3. Never putting it over
So
6.
does the system only do min-max, or does it always also do demand-based?
So it does min-max, but you can do based on quantity moved, so I guess that would be more of the demand-based one you're looking for. You can get a purchase order
Okay.
based on what's being used. However, sometimes parts go walk-in, people misplace, so it's good to
Yeah.
check by quantity based on movement.
Fair.
When I was a mechanic, we would lose a lot of fuel treatment. Um,
Understood.
we'd get a lot of like oil and fuel treatment because they were like $10 a bottle, and we'd have a million of them, and that
Right.
inventory would just walk. We would misplace it.
Yeah. Understood. Understood.
Um, cost average, and that's where you'd put in what your last cost was. So
Mhm.
like say it was like you had here 2381. If you've done
Right.
it a couple times, it'll put in that average of how much it is exactly.
Right.
And
Now that only now does the average cost system, because I've been going in here and actually updating pricing through this screen, right? Um, but average cost can't work unless you're actually, well, my experience anyway. There has to be an NPO somewhere that's actually generating quantities, right? Which I assume we'll get to.
well, this would be as you just add them in as the average of how much you're adding it. You can do like global changes for your cost, like say everything's cost has gone. Like you could go in now and say item adjustment and say everything's cost has gone up 7% because of the massive
Right.
inflation we got.
Right.
And that would affect that as well. But this is average
Okay.
based on what you've put in here, not based on like the quantity and how much that quantity is.
Okay. So
It's
it's
based
not.
on what
So
you've
is
purchased them for. The value
right.
is based on the average cost or the last cost and how many you have on hand. So you can get a report.
Right.
Let's say you have 5 of these and they're 23 a pop. You have $115 worth of this part.
Right. Okay. But a true average cost, and again, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. But say I've got 5 on the shelf that I paid $1 for, and then I get 5 more in that I paid $1.50 for. Now the average cost on those should be $1.25. Granted, those are round numbers. It works like that. But if you start changing those 5s to a 3 and a 7, now your average cost isn't $1.25. It actually becomes another number, right? Because it's weighted. Um, so is there a way to make that work in this system so that your average cost is actually accurate as opposed to just 2 numbers divided by 2?
I'm not sure offhand. I'll have to check with programming on that. That's a little more technical than
Okay.
generally we get for that.
Right. Fair.
And it'll have like the price levels where you have like your standard 1, 2, 3. As you go
Mhm.
in, those will change here. One quick second though. Cody, could you just grab a screenshot of this page and just drop me in Discord? So as you go in here, you'll have margins, which will go by your sliding scales.
Right.
And you can set your sliding scale margin, like you guys have 70. So as you go in, it'll calculate those.
Right.
And that's just to make sure you guys can make a profit on that.
Okay. And I was doing that initially when I was changing them around. It comes up on the tickets. It throws the guys up front a little bit because when you just calculate it by margin, it'll come up 3 digits on the pennies column,
Mm.
which I'm sure it'll round back to 2 once it actually prints an invoice.
Yeah,
But
it'll
that's throwing them off a little bit.
below 4 round
So
down,
I've been
above 5 round up.
right.
But it's just to make sure you see like exactly what it is, and sometimes people are round up. People get very specific about
Yeah.
pennies.
Yeah,
We'll have
understood.
people spend like an hour on the phone for QuickBooks because they think they're off by a penny due to their tax, because their tax is like 0.8275 or something.
Right, right.
So, always fun. And then if you have, you can add associated labor charges. So say it's a particularly weird part, every time it's added, it will automatically add hours to it.
Okay.
And then movement, this will just tell you when they were moved and stuff. And again, that'll start tracking in history where that goes.
Okay.
Any other questions on that while we're in here?
I think I'm pretty straight on that.
Okay, so do you have any more specific questions on like adding inventory or the system?
Well, that's what I was wondering as far as the PO based. Let me take a look here. Let me do. Incoming POs, outgoing POs, buying recommendations, sales reporting. All right, so demand versus REO we talked. So do tickets automatically generate POs? That was a yes. Average costing is still kind of a question mark, but I'll keep looking at that and see how it goes along. Incoming POs and outgoing POs, generation, I suppose. Like, the way the system works, do I need to do an outgoing PO to send a product back to a vendor if it's been populated in inventory, or is it just standard practice to go in and just adjust the inventory?
Um, you'll generally, it's good practice to go back and adjust the inventory manually, but we do have automatic systems such as like a pricing update will update the pricing altogether, and like the deliveries
Right.
and returns and purchase orders will help you update the numbers as well there.
Okay. Is there a best way to do that, though, as opposed to just going into the inventory editor every time?
Um, well, so that's where the pricing update comes in, which will
Mhm.
update the pricing individually because, like I said, I'd recommend doing that at least by like 2% a year, especially nowadays.
Right.
As far as
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
inventory goes, deliveries and returns will
Okay.
process deliveries, but purchase orders will help you get a printout to give to your vendors. So you could go into a
Okay.
purchase order, select add, and then you could go in and say either all vendors or a specific vendor, which again I'd really recommend for the sake of ease clearing this
Yeah, this
out.
is it's on my list, I
Like
promise.
AOL.com is a vendor, which
Yeah.
that's not right. Um,
Well, Danny kind of uses it as a contact list too, so
oh,
I'll clean it up within reason. But yeah, absolutely.
okay, so well, let's use AOL because that way there's no actual. It's not going to break anything, hopefully.
Right.
Um, so you could go in and say, based on reorder quantities. So this will be the min and max quantity I was talking about before, which is good. Which to me is the best because items walk. But you can go to item movements. So this will be, let's do a purchase order of everything we've purchased from AOL.com since last time you did an order. Let's say you do it every 3 months, so 12
Right.
for 21. And there's a calendar icon if you want to click that instead of type.
Okay.
And you could do just process cores. A lot of like interstate batteries. You could do like bulk returns of the cores.
Right.
Any
Take
questions
those
on that?
back out of the system.
Hmm?
No, I think I've got that pretty much figured.
Okay. So any other questions on the inventory system itself while I'm in here?
On the inventory side, I'll keep playing in there. I think it sounds like I'm pretty much on the right track as far as understanding how all that works. Um, so let's talk about pricing and matrices,
Okay.
if we could.
Give me one.
Unless you kind of got a pattern that you're trying to follow, we can just run with you, and I'll interject where I need to.
Nope, it's
If
totally
you
fine.
have a next thing. Okay, very good.
I'm recording it for you, so I'm gonna start a separate recording for margins just to make it a little more easy. That way they're not like a one long demo. 1 second.
Fair enough.